Bet you love that splash screen, eh? Hits the spot. Institutional evil. Have I got an example for you today? So I got a short video I'm going to show you with a Dr. Naputi, and just watch what the US government is doing to him and what it's doing to him for. So this is an exemplar of institutional evil at its most absurd and horrific. Have a look.
We made recommendations out of our practices: high dose vitamin D, zinc, quercetin, vitamin C, and we were making some tremendous headway in our community, actually getting on the news, getting positive press. Then all of a sudden, we got sued by the federal government for violating a law called the COVID Consumer Protection Act, which no one's ever heard of until we were served the papers on it. We had violated this law 12,555,000 times at a price tag of almost $45,000 per violation, which is a potential penalty of $500 billion. Let me say that again. I am actively being sued by the United States federal government for $500 billion for recommending vitamin D and zinc during the pandemic. Now, I've spent $4 million defending myself against our federal government. When the FTC and DOJ put out their press release about us, which was a fraudulent press release, that press release gave authority to 5 of my banks to debank us. So I had 5 banks shut our bank accounts down and freeze our assets. We had to defend my license 6 times, successfully, by the way. We have documents during our discovery, especially from Facebook and Google, saying that the federal government did reach out to them in order to shut down our social media platforms. We were reaching about 10 to 15 million people per week. The latest study that came out November the 12th, the researchers said that if politicians and doctors would have talked about the benefits of vitamin D during the year 2020, we could have prevented 4 million cases of COVID in America alone and prevented 116,000 unnecessary deaths. So when we showed that to the federal government, they got extremely concerned that we were going to make all of this public. The government's only tactic in situations like this is to try to bankrupt the individuals involved. Now, the only one expert witness the government has, through a private investigator, we found out that this expert witness took a $9 million grant from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation through Gavi to make COVID shots in 2020. When we told the federal government all of this, that they had violated the Administrative Procedural Act, that they violated my civil rights, they said, look, we've drawn our sword against Dr. Naputi as the first doctor in the COVID Consumer Protection Act, and we're not putting our sword away until there's blood on it.
Blood on their sword, eh? Pure institutional evil. I think you'll agree it doesn't get much worse than that. And the funny thing is, vitamin D and, zinc, these are all things you should take for any viral issue, or make sure you're high in the blood levels of them and plenty adequate. I mean, vitamin D supplements mightn't change the world, but making sure your blood level is well up around 40 nanogram per mil through eating real ancestral foods like meat, fish and eggs, getting healthy sun exposure and vasodilation, and of course vitamin D, etc. This is basic basement level stuff. Vitamin D and zinc, and he's getting gone after in this horrific manner. So like I said, pure evil. And that clip came from a Twitter space that I presented briefly at the other night, and it's 5 hours long. I'll put the link down below. Fascinating group of great people, doctors, professors, who are impacted by censorship, abuse, and all kinds of personal attacks over the past few years, and all originating ultimately from institutional corruption. So my little piece just goes through how I was impacted, and I'll say up front, I was less impacted than many of these great people who had licenses kind of revoked, who had massive attacks on their banking, and just a whole horrific medley of horror show institutional corruption.